So if you're any true Marvel fan, you did take a gander at the What If series on Disney Plus. And there was one particular episode that stood out to me, and that was the zombie episode. And I knew that there was Marvel zombie comics, hadn't gotten around to reading them, but I thought, why not with it being October? So this episode is all about Marvel zombies. So I will be comparing the comic book to that episode of the What If series. So if you have not read this and or watched that episode, stop now, watch, read, and then come back. Okay, so very different. First of all, within the What If series, the zombies do not speak. They are the classic, just moaning, groaning, making those nasty snarling noises. They don't seem to have any of their old humanity or themselves left in them. True zombie form. However, in this, very different. They are still able to talk. They still sound like themselves. And in many cases, they are still themselves, but as zombies. If that makes any sense. Probably not. I'm rambling. Okay, so I will further explain. I liked that after they eat, they become more clear-headed. It kind of reminds me of how vampires tend to work, where they become that bloodlust when they see the blood and when they thirst. And then once they have it, they kind of calm down a bit and they can be more themselves and in control. And that is exactly how it feels in Marvel Zombies. To the point where Spider-Man, after he's eaten, realizes that he ate his wife, Mary Jane, and his aunt. And he always gets super upset afterwards. First it was kind of sad, and then it was kind of funny in a sick and twisted way. They do realize what they have done, what they are, but at the same time, they are also going to do anything they can to keep themselves alive, if you want to say, or at least cognizant. I don't know what you want to call zombies. Aren't really alive. Undead. They want to keep themselves undead, I guess. I don't know. They just want to keep existing. There you go. So it starts out with a bunch of them locked in this room with Magneto. And he is the only one of them that isn't a zombie at that time. He is just willing to take them all on. And I loved how their different personalities came out through their zombies. So zombie, actually in this case, instead of it being Captain America, it's Colonel America. So the Colonel, he is like, look, don't make this difficult. We'll make it painless. You know, we're gonna eat you. Whereas Wolverine is like, no, let me take on his ass. So, you know, that seems very fitting with how those characters are. Of course, Magneto puts up a great fight, but in the end, he does succumb to them, and they do feast on him. There is some moment of them discussing, trying to figure out where they're going to get their next meal, because they're not able to preserve any of what the little left of humans there are. They're just eating through them rather quickly. So they start to plan, you know, are there any underground bunkers that we may have missed? Maybe we should try to get out of the cities and see if there's anybody else hiding in the countrysides. They're doing all of that. While they're doing that, though, Ant-Man, which in this case is Hank Pym, he goes to his laboratory and he opens up this big container, and inside he has a alive human Black Panther. He has been slowly amputating parts of his body off so he can still remain cognizant. So sick, so twisted, at the same time very smart. And he keeps telling himself that, you know, it's not as bad because I leave your mask on and I keep you under with pain meds, which I guess is kind, but at the same time, you're still slowly eating him. And so you see him saw off the foot and he's going to eat that. Well, Janet Pym comes after him. She isn't quite as level-headed. She just takes the food and eats it and wants to gobble it all up. And Hank's like, look, we have to do this carefully. We can't tell the rest of the group. We can't just eat through him. We got to sustain this because we don't know when we're going to get our next meal. And she's like, nah, screw that. He takes her out. He just takes her head clean off her body. We do find out later her head is still animated. Again, not alive because they are zombies. So her head is still able to talk and do things. We go back over. They spot the Silver Surfer. They don't know who he is, have never seen him in this universe, but they spot him and they're like, oh my God, we gotta get that guy. So they're gonna try to go after him, figure out where he is heading, what he's doing here, but really they just want to eat him. Then at the same time, we cut back over to the Pym's lab. Janet has somehow been able to free Black Panther. He gets up, makeshifts a crutch because he's lost a portion of this arm and also a portion of that same side leg. So he's got a crutch stuck up in his arm. And he's walking along and he's got her head by the hair and he's holding it out. If you've read Headlopper, it reminds me of that, the witch that he has tied up on his pack. That's kind of what this feels like. It's just the head with the hair. And so he's holding it out so she doesn't bite him. And she's like, just a piece, just a piece. And that part's pretty funny. I like that. Well, he meets up with Magneto's guys who live up on Asteroid M. And they came down because they're worried about Magneto. They haven't heard from him over the comms. And they're looking for him. And they're like, oh my gosh, a human? And Black Panther's like, yeah, I'm still here, but look at what they've done to me. And they're going to take him back up on the spaceship. Satellite. Asteroid. Space station. Whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Anyways, super tired. This was really good though. Super tired. They take him back up, but he's like, no, we have to take Janet as well too. She is my friend, which I thought was very kind, but at the same time, in my mind, after seeing a lot of horror movies, horror fan here, you don't do that. Don't bring whatever this is, if it's a zombie virus, whatever, you don't bring that with you. You leave all that shit down there and keep that asteroid station pristine without it. But of course, he takes it up. They're going to run tests on it and see if they can maybe come up with a cure for it. Anyways, back down to Earth. They do get the Silver Surfer. There's an awesome fight between Silver Surfer and the rest of the Avengers. In the end, though, I mean, he does take them out. He wounds quite a few, and they start to realize that, you know, it's probably best to just, if you have a broken leg, just rip it off, because you don't need it, and it's not going to heal, they're realizing. Wolverine gets his, like, flesh ripped off, and so he still has his adamantium bones, but he rips that off because there's no way for them to really stay attached. So now he's down to one arm. They do realize that even though Silver Surfer has that outer hard shell to his body, like his skin, you know, super hard, once you get past that, there is meat inside for them to eat, and they do. And when they do, they get part of his cosmic powers, which is super cool. Of course, when we see the Silver Surfer, we know who's going to be showing up next. Galactus. And he comes and is like, hey, where the hell's my Silver Surfer? He's supposed to be here. He's my herald. And they're like, oh, that guy? And they kind of just like look around. They're going to try to take out Galactus, which is super difficult, obviously. They're trying to use their new powers. It's not really working. So the Avengers step back. They're going to regroup and figure out what it is that they can do. The scientists of the group are trying to create a machine that will harness their powers and be a bigger direct hit at Galactus. They're working on that. They can fly now because they have Silver Surfer's powers. They're running around all over the world gathering supplies to create this, and that's pretty fun. They do, of course, because there are some brilliant minds on that team. So they come out, and with their powers combined, they're able to blast him. And they also have the help of the Sinister Six. Everything combined, they're able to get Galactus down. We don't actually see the end of the fight, which is pretty cool because then it cuts away to several years later. Black Panther comes down with what's left of Magneto's men. And Janet, they put her in this like helmet, and then she's outfitted with a whole robotic body. And they come down to see if there's anything left to be found on the Earth. And they're scanning and they don't see any life forms. So they're thinking, well, I guess the zombies are all gone too because there wouldn't have been enough food to sustain them, and everything's overgrown. That part reminds me, if you've seen The Last of Us, with the trees and the foliage growing all around the buildings and they've crumbled around them. You do cut away to another planet. So you see this other world and you see these aliens, which we have not seen before. One of them's like, sir, there's something coming and it's Galactus. Do we have any hope? And he's like, no, they're already here. And you see this image, and then you see this image. Just like hella cool. So this is what they call the new Galactus, which includes Ant-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Wolverine, and Hulk, which I think is so cool. That's the last it for that story. I mean, it does say the end ? And there is a Marvel Zombies 2. That's different storyline. And if this goes well, I can always cover that one too, because obviously you have to know that I loved this. This was great. It was so much fun. I liked it even better than the What If show. That one did kind of feel like it was maybe almost a prequel to this, just because we only saw Black Panther, Magneto, and then his group from Android M are the only ones who aren't zombies, whereas all the other Marvel characters are or dead. And in the What If episode, there's a lot less of them that are zombies. So it kind of felt like a prequel in that respect, and them still trying to figure out what is going on. Whereas here, it was more, this has already been happening. We have been dealing with this for quite some time, and we're just concerned about where we get our next meal, and then self-preservation, which again is the same case when Galactus comes. They just want to keep living. Or unliving? I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. They're undead. So I would give this story definitely a 5 out of 5. Absolutely loved it. It was great. It was graphic. If you don't like blood and guts, do not read this. But if you are into horror and into that real gritty, it's great. And I love how it's all drawn. There's some really good moments in here that I don't want to show because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it. But again, 5 on that one. I'd sleeve this one in a heartbeat. This was great. It's going to be one that I will definitely want to revisit. And I look forward to reading the second one. So, Marvel Zombies, have you read it? Did you watch that episode? And which one did you think was better? This has been Victoria with Merlin's Vault. Bye.